Before we get today's video started, be sure to like the video if you are excited about Texas Tech absolutely destroying the Baylor Bears out in Waco to get back to 500. Texas Tech clearly has an identity. We'll talk about that in today's video and how it's Taj time and it should be for the rest of the year. And one thing that really stood out to me about the Tim DeRuyter defense. But before we get into that, be sure to like the video if you are excited about what you've seen from Texas Tech football, specifically out in the Brazos, out at the toilet seat, I like to call it, against the Baylor Bears in the Butt Bowl. All right, let's get right into this because in today's video, we will recap the just absolutely dominating performance by the Red Raiders. Again, 39-14, and really it did not feel that close really at all. It felt like Texas Tech had a grip on this game from the opening drive where Baron Morton just threw an absolute dart back shoulder to Coy Aiken, who got his first touchdown of his collegiate career. Shout out to Coy for that one. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Obviously, Taj Brooks is going to be a focal point of this video, just like he is the focal point of the Texas Tech offense. And then why I think the win is obviously important, getting back to 3-3 right at the midway point. But the most critical aspect of this win for Texas Tech lies in the fact that you know what the Red Raiders should be moving forward. All right, one more time. Again, be sure to like the video if you are excited about what Texas Tech did on the Brazos last night, beating the Baylor Bears, not even just beating them, flat out dominating them. But let's jump into the game recap. Here are the stats from the three primary offensive players. Got Baron Morton throwing for 180 passing yards, 4 total TDs. He actually had a rushing TD late in this one to get it to 39 points. As I mentioned, it's Taj time, and it always will be for the Red Raiders as long as he's healthy for Texas Tech this year. And the new number one target in this offense for Texas Tech is abundantly clear with Baron Morton at quarterback and the offense that Zach Kittley wants to run moving forward. It is Miles Price. He had 13 targets last night against the Baylor Bears, caught 10 of them, only had one drop for 10 catches and 90 yards for the senior wide receiver for the Red Raiders. But that's not really what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the Red Raider defense because you look at what they did last night against Baylor, right? A team that if you go watch Dave Aranda talk about what he wants this team to be, he wants Baylor to be what Texas Tech is, that ground and pound defensive team when it comes down to it, right? Baylor averaged 0.6 rushing yards last night per carry. Let me repeat that. 0.6 of a yard. The Tim DeRuyter defense has legitimately just been ridiculous. And not even just for this Baylor game, right? Again, 0.6 yards a carry, right? You fall forward and you accidentally get that, right? We're talking about 2 feet out of a yard. That's what they did last night in terms of managing this Baylor rushing attack, which isn't bad, right? You got Richard Reese, who I think is one of the most talented running backs in the Big 12, right? But you stalled them, and it was not just last night. This dates back to the Houston game in the second half. Look at the bottom line below. The Tim DeRuyter defense over the last 6 quarters of play has allowed 445 yards of total offense, averaging out to about 74 yards a quarter and 14 total points allowed. Tim DeRuyter has made a conscious switch when it comes to the defense, and you can go back and watch the tape. It is abundantly clear. The priority for the Red Raiders is to set the edge. They do not want running backs or teams bouncing outside, and they set the edge with 2 behemoths out there. And Steve Linton, who, by the way, shout out to him, 3-sack performance out in Waco for him. And Miles Cole, who I thought arguably had the most underrated performance of any Red Raider last night in Waco. Okay? He set the edge at an elite level and was impactful in the run game in a lot of ways that don't show up in the box score. Again, setting the edge, forcing Baylor to go back inside to those behemoths on the defensive line of Tony Bradford, right? Quincy Leddett. You've got also Tony Bradford and Jalen Hutchings in there as well. I know I just repeated one of those guys, but you've got multiple guys in there, right, that you feel good about. And you really rotated in about 7-8 guys on that defensive line, and all of them just came out and really played at an elite level. But it starts with the edge and force feeding offenses to run between the A, B, and C gap. And it makes it easier for these linebackers that aren't as experienced, right? Where they know everything's going to be here because we know the edge is set. They have the capabilities to run sideline to sideline, but why force them to do that when you can force the hand of the offense into running between the A, B, and C gap, and the linebackers are just running downhill? The star position and CJ Baskerville running downhill. You've also got Rabbit running downhill and creating chaos, right? That has what has changed for this Texas Tech defense, and they are really doing a great job because, again, I've said this basically all year, right? Dating back to the start of fall camp. The best position group, in my opinion, on this Texas Tech defense, and really maybe even the team, is the secondary. And the secondary is allowing this to happen up front in the sense of teams can't really pass on them. So now you can set the edge and force feed everything in the middle, and your playmakers have less room to make up when it comes to impacting in the run game. So I thought it was a great switch. You noticed it after what Donovan Smith did in the first half out in Lubbock, and for the past 6 quarters again. 445 yards of total offense, about 74 yards a quarter, yes, and then 14 total points allowed. This Texas Tech defense is all kinds of legit. Speaking of legit, Taj Brooks, and he might just be the best running back in the Big 12. There's an argument for sure about it. His 4th straight 100-plus yard rushing game. This is the first time a Red Raider has done this since Ricky Williams did it for the Red Raiders back in the late 90s. Taj Brooks is 100% the centerpiece of this Texas Tech offense, and obviously Taj Brooks deserves a ton of credit, but we've been hard on the Texas Tech offensive line, specifically in pass protection. There's no mistake about it. They're damn near elite when it comes to run blocking. It seems like Taj Brooks falls forward every time, and if he doesn't, you see an offensive lineman giving him a push where it goes from -2 yards potentially to at least back to the line of scrimmage. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, right? But that at least keeps you within manageable distance when it comes to the later downs, whether that's 2nd or 3rd down. And that's huge for Texas Tech because it allows you to keep Taj Brooks on the field and actually be able to use him as a weapon on 3rd down. And for me, I think there's this, right? I'm not sure he's the best running back in the Big 12, right? But he's either 1 or 2, in my opinion, because he is the Texas Tech offense, right? When you look at what Texas Tech does well, they are going to do a lot of RPOs. Obviously, Taj Brooks is involved. And then play action passes, right? Taj Brooks is involved. And again, last night you had a couple of plays not go your way. One where Baron Morton threw it deep and it was a little short to Miles Price. That Jerron Bradley offensive pass interference, which was just a butt cheeks call, in my opinion. Jerron Bradley just absolutely dominated a Baylor defender within the manageable right of him putting his hands on him, and he threw him to the side. Just looked bad because the Baylor defender slipped, right? But you're going to have those opportunities if you're Texas Tech when it comes down to it, because now defenses are going to have to just absolutely go all out in terms of trying to stop Taj Brooks. And it would not surprise me at all if you see Baron Morton have a game here in the next couple weeks, maybe even against Kansas State this coming up week in Lubbock, where he throws for 300-plus yards because Taj Brooks, he's going to get his still, right? But he is prioritized by the K-State defense, and they're going to try and make Baron Morton beat them. And I think Baron Morton can do that. Before we get into the biggest takeaway of this game for me, though, let me know down in the comments below, is Taj Brooks the best running back in the Big 12? It's a simple Y for yes or in for no. I think there's definitely a case for it, right? And the reason being is this. Look at this stat, and I posted it over on Twitter. Be sure to go follow me over on Twitter at RCMB323. Taj Brooks, exactly halfway through the season nationally, ranks 5th in the conference. You notice a couple of other Big 12 guys. That's why it's a fun conversation, right? In the sense of, is Taj Brooks the best running back in the Big 12? You got Jonathan Brooks from Texas, stud. You've also got Iman Bailey, right, from TCU, another stud. I think it's clearly one of those 3 guys, but you tell me, is Taj Brooks the best running back in the Big 12 right now? All right. My biggest takeaway from this Baylor game is simply this. Listen, winning 39-14 and getting back to 500 was absolutely pivotal and needed if Texas Tech wants to even have any bowl, way of thinking, right? Like have a chance to go to a bowl game, because 2-4, there's not a lot of leeway there. 3-3, okay, there's a little bit of leeway, but now you've dominated the past 6 quarters, right? I think playing great in all 3 facets is what Texas Tech did last night. But the most important aspect of this, again, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, the word identity. Texas Tech has a clear identity right now. They are a run-first team that uses the play action and RPO, and they are not going to allow you to run the football on them. It's that simple, right? This is a total 180 of a change in terms of what people think about Texas Tech, the air raid, this, that, and the other. Oh, they give up a ton of points defensively. No, that defense is really good, right? Really good. And I get it. They played Houston and Baylor, two teams that will probably finish lower in the Big 12. I don't care who you play. Okay. If you hold a team to 0.6 yards per carry, 2 feet per carry, you're a great defense right now at this moment. Things can change any given week, right? And moving forward, you may not win every game. That's just football, right? However, you have an identity, and moving forward into the back half of your schedule, that is absolutely pivotal for the Red Raiders now, because you get to face a K-State team that's playing on the road in back-to-back weeks. They lost in Stillwater. Now they come to Lubbock. What team are you going to see? Is Will Howard actually a good quarterback like I think he is? TBD at this point, right? Then you go to Provo. You're a more talented team than BYU. Can you win on the road again? And if you win on the road again, oh, this could create a snowball effect for the Red Raiders. And you don't want a snowball effect to happen for Joey McGuire and crew when it comes down to winning and getting success. Because, again, I don't think anybody was doubting if this roster is talented. It clearly is. But you have to perform on the field. And the Red Raiders have done that now. Halfway through the year, you're 3-3. You got to feel good about where you're at in terms of how you played lately. Can this create a snowball effect now that you for sure have your identity moving into the back half of the Big 12 slate? It was absolutely critical for me to see that in Waco after a dominating win for the Red Raiders. One more time, like the video if you haven't already. If you are excited about that dominating win for the Red Raiders out in the Brazos, in the toilet seat, in the butt bowl. The Red Raiders, absolutely. I'm not going to say that. That's too far. That's too far. But y'all know where I was going with it. Again, I am RC Maxfield. If you haven't already, be sure to like the video and hit that subscribe button to join the most engaging Texas Tech community here on YouTube and the fastest growing Texas Tech community here on YouTube. We're giving you game recaps, game previews, keys to the game, and a ton of stuff pertaining to the Big 12 in general. Stay in the know right here on the Back to 12 podcast channel.